winning the Heisman Trophy in 2024? I get it. For most fans, this is a conversation you have, 8 months down the line, 9 months down the line, mid-October, that's when you start bringing it up. But for us, the diehards, the people that can't get enough of this sport and are paying attention to every move awaiting the arrival of week one, we're also paying attention to the Heisman odds. And FanDuel recently came out with their top options of who's claiming the hardware come early December in the Big Apple. So I thought today, let's go through the list, see who they believe are the front runners, who are the dark horses, and which names am I higher on than most. But if you are new here to the channel, welcome on in, people. My name is Cole Thompson. I'm a radio show host based in Houston, and I talk college football daily. Look, the season may have come to a close, but I'm not going from 100 to 0 when it comes to making content. I'm here to keep you entertained throughout the entire offseason, recap in 2023, a look ahead at 2024, Heisman odds, the transfer portal, and a bunch of other moves. So if this is the daily dose of college football you need to survive the dreaded offseason, might I recommend that you hit that subscribe button down below. Leave a comment telling me who do you think is going to win the Heisman going into 2024. Tell your friends, your family, your mortal enemies, best of bros, fans of college football, and just fans of football in general, because we are in the race and eventually we'll become the #1 YouTube show talking college football daily. So why don't you jump on in while the water's fine? Go ahead and follow me on social media, Twitter, Instagram, X, whatever you call your platforms, at Mr. Cole Thompson. But that way, conversations surrounding our favorite sport never have to stop flowing. So FanDuel recently released their top odds for the 2024 Heisman, and every list is going to differ, but in their opinions, Texas quarterback Quinn Ewers and Georgia quarterback Carson Beck lead the charge at plus 750. There are some other names on there that are pretty high up. Dillon Gabriel at Oregon is at plus 1,000. Will Howard's at plus 1,200 at Ohio State. Jalen Milroe, Nico Iamaleava, Garrett Nussmeier, Jackson Arnold. They're all on the list. But let's go ahead and focus in on the top two names and why they would make a lot of sense. For starters, there's a proof of concept of what you're returning in talent. You know what Quinn Ewers can do. You know what Carson Beck can do. And you've seen them work at high-end levels throughout the entire regular season. Not many people believed that Beck was going to be able to lead the team to a college football playoff alone. But if you honestly look back at the season, there were a multitude of opportunities to where Beck came back down to earth. He could have been his just mortal self. He could have been the quarterback that was still developing into a household name in college football. Nope, he decided to go Super Saiyan and just lead his team to win after win after win after win. And it felt like at one point Georgia was on the collision course to win another national title. And then you have Quinn Ewers, who at times was dealing with injuries and wasn't perfect, but when he was on, he was on. This kid was literally about as clean-cut, precise as possible. He was a surgeon working the middle of the field with Adonai Mitchell, with Xavier Worthy, with Jatavion Sanders, Jordan Whittington, even out of the backfield with guys like Jaden Blue and CJ Baxter and Jonathan Brooks. Just clean-cut, precise elevation as much as possible. Lead your team to a Big 12 title for the first time since 2009. So I get why they're the front runners. The other thing that's really important is the same proof of concept with talent. Texans has gone out and crushed the transfer portal. I know they haven't added in a surplus of names, but you look at the talent that they have brought in, it's exceptional. In fact, it's second to none. Speed, more speed, a lot of speed, and that speed is going to be beneficial to a quarterback like yours as he wants to go deep. And it's going to open up the playbook to put up more numbers, even better numbers than you had this last season. Silas Bolden, Jonte Cook, Matthew Golden, and you throw in Isaiah Bond, all 4 track stars. Amari Niblack, I've been saying it wrong, not Niblack, Niblack, has been a phenomenal route runner and a good number 2 tight end. Now you add him in alongside Gunnar Helm. That's more speed. Plus you have a proof of concept in the backfield with Jaden Blue and CJ Baxter, and another year for them to be able to strut their stuff. It just feels promising. And the same thing goes for Carson Beck. You've added in a lot of talent, but you've retained a lot of talent. You still have a guy like Dominic Lovett. You still have a Ra Thomas. You brought over a wide receiver from Miami. He's going to be an immediate plug-and-play factor. You added in a good running back with Trevor Etienne, who is an effective pass catcher out of the backfield. So it's more the same. Yes, you lose Brock Bowers. Yes, you lose Adonai Mitchell. But you bring in a bona fide #1 wide receiver. You bring in a bona fide #1 tight end. You go ahead and you bring in a bona fide superstar on the outside. Bibbidi bobbidi boop, you're right back in the running. And both these teams are probably headed towards Atlanta with the opportunity to be the SEC champions. They're not alone on this list. There were some names that I really liked. There were some names I was a little high on. Perfectly ranked, actually, in my opinion, is Will Howard. A lot of people are probably tuned off by Howard because, well, he's a quarterback that left his school. Why leave Manhattan when you already are the starter? Case in point, Avery Johnson's really damn good, and he was going to have to fight for those reps. But just because he goes to a place like Columbus, it doesn't mean the concept is changing. In fact, you should feel more confident about a guy like a Will Howard than a Colin McCord, simply because of the mobility aspect. And so now you've already talked about what the production has to be this past year in at Columbus. What if you add in more numbers on the ground? What if a Will Howard scores 14 touchdowns with his legs and then another 28 or 29 touchdowns through the year? And so now we're talking about a guy with, 42 touchdowns, a completion percentage roughly around 68%, 4,000 passing yards, and then you also have maybe 4 or 5 interceptions. Seems like pretty good numbers, and numbers that should lead your team to a college football playoff appearance. The same thing goes for another quarterback on this list, like Jackson Dart. He's a little bit further down. He's number 10 in the pecking order, plus 1,800 odds to win the Heisman Trophy. But you look at the returning talent, they have upgraded defensively. But offensively, they basically were wash, rinse, repeat. Lane Kiffin wants more than 11 wins. That's the way it was built this past offseason. Trey Harris isn't going anywhere. Jordan Watkins isn't going anywhere. Caden Priestcorn isn't going anywhere. And you lose Dayton Wade and Quinshon Judkins to the transfer portal and the NFL draft. But Logan Diggs, complimentary running back that should pair well with Ulysses Bentley. There you go. You also added in Juice Wells, potentially an upgrade over Dayton Wade. Guy was a 1,000-yard receiver 2 years ago in Columbia, South Carolina. And the only reason why he wasn't there this past season, injury. So what if he was a guy that put up back-to-back 1,000-yard seasons, and now he's working with one of the best young quarterbacks in the SEC? You would think that those numbers would improve, right? I would. And that's why I actually think that he should be a little bit higher on this list. I like Jackson Arnold. I like Nico Iamaleava. We know that in the future, they are going to be household names among SEC foes. But right now, it does feel like you're a little too low on a guy like Jackson Dart. So I'd actually be betting those odds a lot. A dark horse for you inside the top 10. Connor Wegman from Texas A&M. This is going to be a really interesting year because one of the main problems at College Station isn't just that they handed out $76 million to a coach not to be on the sidelines, but quarterback play. And it's honestly not even quarterback play. It's the limited reps of a quarterback because the offensive line has been a turnstile and they've been getting hurt and dropping like flies. The last 3 seasons underneath Jimbo Fisher, at least 3 quarterbacks started one game. And Connor Wegman was probably the best over those last 3 years. You look at his production toward the end of 2022, what he was building on in 2023. A&M felt like they had a very solidified starter with impeccable upside. And then he gets hurt in week 4. And then you turn to Max Johnson. Then you turn to Jalen Henderson. And there you go, 7-6. Wegman stays healthy. There still is a surplus of talent at wide receiver. The Aggies were also without their number 1 tight end, Donovan Green, who tore his ACL at the start of the year. And you brought over Adam Cushing as your new offensive line coach. Immediately an upgrade over Steve Addazio, which means to me, numbers should improve offensively in all categories because quarterback play will improve because if he won't be laying on his ass. So I actually think that if you were to make a dark horse bet in the SEC, Connor Wegman belongs in that short list. There's a lot of potential, a lot of upside, and a lot of intrigue in College Station. Maybe they are a team that actually ends up getting a bit more production than we actually give them credit for. Another name that I think is a dark horse, which is surprising to me because of mainly his main fault was injury status, a lot like Wegman. And this is one I would be betting on a lot. Jalen Daniels at Kansas. I understand that they lost Andy Kolenicki to Penn State, but this is a quarterback with 2 years of starting experience. This is a quarterback that burnt his red shirt because if he believed in the product that was in Lawrence. And he also was a kid with intangibles that can't be taught. Mobility, elusiveness in the open field, physicality as a runner, great deep ball accuracy. All of those are just accolades attached to what number 6 does. And he's going to be playing in a conference where there's a lot of parity. And parity means production. And production means great numbers. And great numbers means potentially a trip to New York City. I'm putting Jalen Daniels immediately in my top 5. He would be probably one of my 2 dark horses. And you should be banking on him as well. A guy that's a little too high for me that I do like, but it just doesn't make some sense. Garrett Nussmeier from LSU. There is a lot of potential for Nussmeier. He's been at least in this system with Brian Kelly for the past 2 years, and there is rightfully optimism in Baton Rouge. but we don't really know what we're getting right now. Mike Denbrock's offense could be completely different than what is returning this season. You won't have Malik Neighbors and Brian Thomas, even though you did add in two exceptional receivers, including a guy in CJ Edwards that doesn't get enough respect because of what he did at Liberty this past year. We don't know what you're getting. We don't. And so there was a reason why I thought that when they brought in AJ Swan from Vanderbilt, it was a smart move because it gives you opportunities to elevate the quarterback room status. It gives you more chances to be able to allow creative competition. And it also gives you an opportunity for you to be able to pick the best quarterback possible. If it is Nussmeier, good. It's Nussmeier. If it's Swan, it's Swan. If it's even a freshman, it's a freshman. But it allows you to have that chance. So this is a little too high for me. He comes in currently at plus 1,800. I would probably have him closer to plus 4,000. And now the dark horse of all dark horses, plain and simple. I have no idea how he is this low, but I will go with Avery Johnson. Avery Johnson is going to be a superstar in the college football world. And if you don't believe me, go back and look at when he was on the football field at times, donning the purple and gray. Kid was a human highlight reel. Kid was phenomenal. He just made defenders miss. He was elusive. He was quick-feeted. He wasn't afraid to go ahead and lower his shoulder. And this is a five-star talent. Five-star talent committing to a place like Manhattan, Kansas, buying into what Chris Kleiman is selling. And so this is a kid with now another year to be able to show off in college football. This is a team that we talk about always garnering top 15, top 25 status, and certainly viewed as at least a contender for a Big 12 title. And they brought in talent offensively, and they brought in some wide receivers. Yes, you are losing Colin Klein to Texas A&M, but that doesn't mean that you still can't be effective. He comes in at plus 5,000 odds on FanDuel. I would immediately take that bet and run it to the bank. If his production this past season emulated anything of what you'll get for 12 games, plus even more, if you throw in a conference championship, college football playoff, and a bunch of other games, I think you're looking at a kid that maybe is going to be putting up numbers that we can't even fathom at this point. So there you go. My super dark horse has to be Avery Johnson. A guy that I'm higher on than most is actually Jalon Daniels from Kansas. Guy I'm a little lower on than Moses Garrett Nussmeier. I think that you're at the right point if you're FanDuel, putting Carson Beck and Quinn Ewers at the top. And I won't be shocked to see a Connor Wegman gain some steam as well. I also think that you probably should consider a guy like Jackson Dart and maybe even Will Howard as a top 3 option. These are quarterbacks that could eventually become household names and fixtures of the 2024 season because they already are household names by most of us. But one of them, I do actually think is going to walk away with the Heisman Trophy. And just because your odds right now say that they're really good, it doesn't mean that you're walking away with the award. Take, for instance, last season. How many people thought Michael Penix Jr. was going to be the favorite? Well, he wasn't. He actually was number 4 on this list. And if you go back 2 seasons ago, Michael Penix Jr. and Jaden Daniels both were outside the top 10. They both made it to New York City. Just because you're not in the top 10 does not mean you won't be in the top 3 when all is said and done. Hey guys, thank you so much for watching that video. Don't hit the X button yet. Make sure you hit subscribe to keep up with all of our daily content found on Just Saying It and anything else that we post on this channel. Bye.